Well, good morning, Doug Pagitt Radio on AM 950. It's 11:06 here in the Central Time Zone on August 22nd edition of Doug Pagitt Radio, episode 50. 50 weeks into this little radio program here on AM 950. Hey, we're going to be out at the Minnesota State Fair, the Great Minnesota Get-Together. We'd love to have you join us out there on next Sunday and September 5th. Both Sundays, back-to-back weeks. Come out and join us. There's going to be giveaways. There's going to be books on a stick. You can meet some of the radio personalities from this program and from others. Come join us over there. Look on that State Fair map. The coordinates V16. You know, almost 2 million people go to the Minnesota State Fair, and they can't all show up at the same time because the booth doesn't have enough room for all those. So be sure that you pace your time. Get there between 10 and noon. We'd love to have you out at the Great Minnesota Get-Together. Join us here on the show. And joining us today on the show is Brett McCracken. Brett is the author of the book...
Release the Kraken!
Brett is the author of the book Hipster Christianity. Hipster Christianity, a new book that released just here in August, and so it's newly out on the shelves. You may not have had a chance to pick it up yet, and we wanted to tell you about the book, and then you can decide if that's something you want to go make a purchase of. Brett, thanks so much for being on Doug Pagitt Radio.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Hey, so Brett has written this book, and it's, again, called Hipster Christianity, When Church and Cool Collide. And if you were to read the beginning, you would know that Brett identifies himself just happenstantially as a hipster by his own definition, and has put out on the internet this little test you can take to see if you too are a hipster Christianity. And it's a little tongue-in-cheek. It's kind of fun. It's kind of making a little light of this cultural movement for people to be these urban hipsters. And if you don't know what those are, urban hipsters basically drive into any metropolitan area, go to the little uptown spaces, find where they have the independent movie theaters, the little coffee shops, and you'll see the tight jeans and the people riding on the Schwinn bicycles, and in the evenings drinking the Pabst Blue Ribbon beer. Right, Brett? That's the hipster Christianity kind of thing.
Yes, you nailed it. Those are hipsters.
Yeah, those are current modern day hipsters. Now, what Brett says in the book, essentially, Brett, let me see if I've got this right. It's not so much a book about the cultural forces of what do these urban hipsters want. You're really asking another question, and that is, should churches organize themselves, arrange themselves, and present Christianity in ways that connect with these urban hipsters inside of this cultural set of being cool or being hip? And so you suggest in the book that there's a couple of big questions that should be answered. And one of those big questions is, how is Christianity dealing with a culture that is so driven by fashion and hipness and coolness, and is the real gospel taking a back seat? And in fact, you even go on to sort of suggest that the extent to which you're asking the question, the extent to which people are drawn to Christianity because of Jesus, or are they drawn to it because of our particular packaging of Christianity in a particular way? In other words, you write, as the messenger of Christianity, are we to let the message speak for itself, or must we adapt and package it for a specific context? So, I mean, you're really not writing a book about picking on urban hipsters. You're really writing a book about what should be the role of churches as it relates to any kind of cultural situation. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I'm more or less. I mean, the book definitely is more about the bigger questions about how does the church relate to the culture, and how much do we worry about packaging and fad and trend versus, fidelity to the message itself and communicating that. I think the hipster piece is sort of like where I started with the book. I kind of was observing these Christian hipsters. I went to a Christian college, Wheaton College, and there were tons of these Christian hipsters there, and I wrote for Relevant Magazine for a few years, which is a very Christian hipster publication. So I just started
and you yourself have that sort of Christian hipster. You yourself have that hipster look. I mean, if people are watching on Doug Pagitt Radio live, they'll see this hipster picture of you, and your website has a hipster vibe to it, and your Facebook does, and your book itself is sort of in a particular hipster font. So you kind of get all that stuff. Yeah.
So I mean, I started out just really interested in what the implications of that is. Like, what should Christians be just as cool and hip as any other hipster out there, and what what does it mean to be cool, and does that jive with what Christianity calls us to be?
Yeah, and that's what I kind of want to talk about in the book, less about the urban hipster sort of demographic,
Right.
because that's kind of the context in which you want to have this larger conversation, it seems to me. It's not really the point per se. But I recently have a book that came out this month as well called Church in the Inventive Age, and I try to argue in that book, there is no way to not have a cultural situation for Christianity. Christianity is always in some cultural setting. But I feel like you're asking the question in your book, should Christianity have a cultural setting, as if that's an option? So
No, yeah.
help me understand how...
I definitely agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree that we definitely have a context wherever we are, and we have to, be mindful of that. And I'm not like saying we shouldn't contextualize the gospel. I'm just sort of saying that it looks as though in some cases churches are beginning to prioritize the quick changing fads and ephemeral trends over. I mean, they're putting that contextualizing thing above the message itself, and that's where things get a little bit problematic, I think.
So help me understand, and the people who are going to be interested in your book, to understand when you ask the question, in other words, as the messenger of Christ, are we to let the message speak for itself, or must we adapt and package it for a specific context? What situation would it be where the gospel would speak for itself rather than being packaged in some kind of language, time that you meet, aesthetic, and set of tools? How could you really ask that question, that the gospel speaks for itself? How would it ever speak for itself and not be inside of some package? Like, what question is that really you're driving at in the book? Okay, I'm going to pause the interview right here because I'm putting this up on YouTube, and they limit the videos to 10 minutes. So this is part one. I'm going to come back with part two, and I'll play the audio that asks the question again. Then you'll hear Brett's answer to this question from a quote from his book. So look for part two. Thanks.